Since I was a little girl, I discovered I could talk to angels, and they always told me something was wrong with my stomach. Years later, doctors finally found something wrong with me, and during surgery, I died. The story you're about to hear is a true account. The names of characters and places have been changed to preserve the author's privacy. If you believe in miracles or have experienced one, leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe. Ever since I can remember, angels would whisper in my ear that something was wrong with my stomach. I grew up on the cobblestone streets of Dublin, Ireland, in a family so poor that hunger was our constant companion. I vividly remember one morning at my aunt's house. I sat at the table and my eyes widened at the breakfast before me. A sausage, bacon, egg, tomato, and toast. It was the most abundant meal I had ever seen. "Is all this for me?" I asked with a trembling voice. My aunt looked at me with a mixture of tenderness and pity. "Yes, darling. Eat all you want." As I devoured every bite, I felt a lump in my throat. It wasn't just hunger driving me to eat. It was the sudden understanding of our poverty. That day, something changed inside me. At school, things weren't any better. I started speaking late, around 2.5 years old. Doctors quickly labeled me as retarded, without bothering to look for the real reason: my dyslexia. "This child is hopeless," I once heard my teacher say to another. "It's best to leave her at the back of the classroom and focus on those who do have a future." Her words hit me like an invisible fist. Day after day, I sat in the last row, invisible to everyone except the angels surrounding me. They were the only ones who seemed to understand me. One particularly hard afternoon, after a classmate called me stupid in front of everyone, I ran to the field surrounding the school. I collapsed among the tall grass, sobbing uncontrollably. Why am I different? I cried to the sky. Why does no one understand me? That's when I saw it. An angel with shining wings materialized before me. Its voice was like a soft summer breeze. "Lorna," it said sweetly, "you're different because you have a special gift. Don't let cruel words define you. Your path is unique, and someday you'll understand why." Those words were etched in my heart. From that moment on, although the human world seemed to reject me, I found comfort in a realm few could see. Angels became my constant companions, my teachers in a world invisible to others. I spent my days between two realities: the harsh and cold earthly world, and the warm and welcoming angelic realm. At night, while my family slept in our small Dublin house, I conversed with beings of light who taught me secrets of the universe. "Remember, Lorna," my guardian angel would often say, "your current pain is the seed of your future strength. Every tear, every moment of solitude, is preparing you for something great." And so, between material poverty and spiritual wealth, my childhood passed. A childhood marked by the contrast between the visible and invisible, between human rejection and angelic love. Little did I know then that these early experiences would be the foundation of an extraordinary life, full of challenges, miracles, and a divine purpose that was yet to be revealed. For as long as I can remember, angels have been as natural a part of my life as breathing. Many might think I'm crazy or making up stories, but for me, seeing angels is as normal as seeing another person on the street. I remember the first time I realized not everyone could see them. I was about 5 years old and playing in the yard of our humble Dublin home. A beautiful angel, with wings that seemed made of liquid light, was sitting on the fence. "Mom, look what a beautiful angel!" I exclaimed excitedly. My mother came out of the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. She looked where I was pointing and then observed me with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Sweetie, there's nothing there," she said softly. "You must be imagining things." It was at that moment when I understood that my gift was special and, at the same time, something that would separate me from others. The angels I saw weren't like the ones in church paintings. They were beings of indescribable beauty, with wings so delicate they seemed made of the finest silk or a shimmering mist. Over time, I learned to keep quiet about what I saw. But the angels never stopped being present in my life. They became my teachers, my friends, my confidants in a world that often seemed hostile and confusing. One night, when I was about 12 years old, I was crying in my bed after a particularly difficult day at school. An angel materialized beside me, its soft light illuminating the darkness of my room. "Lorna," it told me with a voice that sounded like celestial music, "don't cry over the taunts of those who don't understand. Your gift is precious. We will teach you to see beyond what human eyes can perceive." From that moment on, the angels began teaching me to see the world in a completely different way. They showed me how to perceive the energy flowing between all things, how to feel the vibration of the universe. "Look beyond what your eyes show you," they would say. "Between you and any object, there is a space full of life, of constant movement. It's the breath of the universe, the stardust that connects everything that exists." I practiced day and night. Gradually, I began to see the world in a way I had never imagined before. The air between people and objects came alive, full of bright particles and energy in constant motion. It was as if I could suddenly see the very fabric of reality. Years passed, and my gift grew with me. The angels taught me about unconditional love, about the connection that exists between all living beings. They told me about my guardian angel, that celestial being who accompanies us from the moment of our birth until our last breath. "Your guardian angel loves you in a way you can't even imagine," explained a golden-winged angel one day. "To them, you are unique, perfect. There is no one else in the world like you, and they love you unconditionally." Those words were a balm for my soul, wounded by years of rejection and mockery. Knowing there was a being who loved me that way gave me the strength to carry on, to accept my gift as a blessing rather than a curse. However, keeping this secret wasn't always easy. When I met Joe, the man who would become my husband, I felt the need to share this important part of my life with him. One afternoon, while we were sitting in his car, I gathered all my courage. "Joe," I said with a trembling voice, "there's something I need to tell you." He looked at me curiously. "What is it, Lorna?" I took a deep breath. "I see angels. Physically. They're around me all the time." There was a moment of silence that seemed to last an eternity. Then Joe let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Lorna," he said, patting my cheek, "only priests and nuns have spiritual experiences like that." His response hurt me deeply. I wanted to scream at him, tell him he was wrong, that the angels were right there, surrounding us at that moment. But I held back. I knew understanding my gift would require time and patience. Despite that difficult moment, Joe and I got married. We lived in a small house in Maynooth and had 4 children. During all that time, the angels continued to be a constant part of my life, though I learned to keep my gift secret from most people. There were times when my ability to see angels was an incalculable blessing, like the night when Joe's guardian angel stood by our bed, silently warning me that my husband wouldn't wake up the next morning. That warning allowed me to be present in his final moments, holding his hand while his soul gently left his body. My angelic gift has been both a blessing and a challenge. It has allowed me to see the beauty and love that exists beyond the veil of physical reality, but it has also separated me from those who cannot understand. However, I wouldn't change it for anything. The angels have taught me that each of us has a divine purpose, and mine is to share the love and wisdom I have received with the world. Each day, when I open my eyes and see the angels around me, I feel deep gratitude. I know I'm not alone, that I am loved, and that I have an important role to play in this world. And that, more than anything else, gives me the strength to face each new day with hope and love. Since I was young, the angels had been warning me that something was wrong with my stomach. But you know how it is when you're young. You think you're immortal and nothing bad can happen to you. So for years, I ignored it and didn't pay attention to those pains that would hit me sometimes. But then came a day when I couldn't ignore it anymore. The angels, who have always been with me, became really insistent. "Lorna," my guardian angel said one morning, "enough is enough. You need to go to the doctor now." Their voice sounded so urgent that it scared me. So, with my heart in my throat, I went to Dr. Ramirez's office, a kind old man who had known me since I was little. "Let's see, Lorna," he said while examining me. "Tell me what's bothering you." I told him about the pains, the nausea, how sometimes I felt like I was dying inside. The doc listened with a worried face and then sent me to a specialist. That day at the hospital, everything went to hell really fast. The specialist ran some tests, and just looking at the results, he turned white as paper. "Lorna," he said seriously, "we need to operate." "Now?" "What do you mean now?" I asked, totally thrown off. Can't I go home first? There's no time, he replied. If we don't operate right now, you could die. Those words hit me like a bucket of cold water. Die? Me? But I was only 35. I still had so much life ahead of me. They rushed me to the operating room. While they were preparing me, I saw my angels surrounding me. I had never seen them look so serious. Don't be afraid, Lorna, one said. Whatever happens, we'll be with you. The anesthesia started to take effect, and I felt myself sinking into a deep sleep. The last thing I remember is the bright light of the operating room and the worried faces of the doctors. When I woke up, or so I thought, I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was somewhere else. A place full of light, of peace. I felt no pain, no fear. It was as if everything bad had been left behind. Damn, I thought, am I dead or what? And then I understood. Yes, I had died. My body was still on the operating table, surrounded by doctors fighting to revive me. But the real Lorna, was somewhere else. In heaven, I guess. It was an incredible sensation. As if suddenly I was pure spirit, pure light. I no longer had a body, but I felt more alive than ever. It was as if I could finally see everything clearly, as if all the doubts and fears I had in life no longer mattered. I saw the angels around me, but now they were different. They weren't visitors in my world anymore. I was in theirs. And it was beautiful, more than I could have ever imagined. Lorna, said a voice I recognized as God's. You have arrived. I wanted to cry with joy, but I no longer had tears. I wanted to scream with excitement, but I no longer had a voice. All I could do was feel, and what I felt was a love so big, so pure, that it felt like I would explode. But then something happened. I felt a pull, as if someone was calling me back. I saw my body on the operating table, saw the doctors applying electric shocks, trying to get my heart beating again. No, I thought, I don't want to go back. I'm good here. I'm at peace here. But God's voice spoke again. Lorna, it's not your time yet. You have to go back. You have a mission to fulfill. I wanted to protest, wanted to stay in that place of light and love, but I knew I couldn't argue with God. So, with all the heaviness in my soul, I felt myself being pulled back to my body. I woke up in the recovery room, surrounded by machines and tubes. The pain was intense, but I was alive. The doctors looked at me as if they'd seen a ghost. Lorna, the surgeon said, you were dead for 10 minutes. We don't know how, but you came back. I did know how. And although part of me yearned for that place of light I had gone to, I knew I had a reason to be back. A mission to fulfill. That experience changed my life forever. I wasn't afraid of death anymore, because I knew it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something bigger, more beautiful. While recovering in the hospital, I saw angels and the souls of those who had passed surrounding my bed. It was as if the veil between this world and the other had become thinner for me. I knew I had to share what I had experienced, that I had to give hope to others. But I also knew that many people wouldn't believe me, that they would think I was crazy. It didn't matter. I had seen the truth, I had experienced divine love, and that was something nobody could take away from me. So there I was, back in the world of the living, with a second chance and a lot of stories to tell. Death didn't scare me anymore. Now what scared me was not living enough to fulfill the mission God had entrusted me with. But that, my friends, is another story. A story that was just beginning. Listen up, here's the truth about what I experienced when I died for a few minutes. Hold on tight, because this is really wild. When I woke up on the other side, I couldn't believe it. Everything was light, but not a light that blinds you, a light that embraces you. And there, among all that light, I saw my boss. No, not my work boss, but my dad who had died many years ago. Dad. I shouted, or so I thought, because I didn't even have a voice anymore. And there he was, but not as I remembered him, all old and sick. No, my dad looked like a young man of about 20, very handsome, and with a smile that broke your heart with how beautiful it was. The funniest thing was his hat. It was one of those he used for fishing, all full of flies that he made himself. Seeing him like that, so happy and young, filled me with a joy I can't even describe. I wanted to run and hug him, and although I didn't have a body anymore, I felt as if I had done it. It was something really strange, like two little lights coming together. There was no skin, no bones, but the love that could be felt stronger than ever. "My little Lorna," he said to me with a voice that sounded like music, "how good to see you, my child. But it's not your time yet." I wanted to tell him so many things. I wanted to tell him about the kids, about how I had missed his advice, about how much I loved him. But before I could, I felt as if I was being pulled. Suddenly, I was on some kind of treadmill, but not like the ones at the gym. It was as if I was floating and moving at the same time. Around me were a ton of angels, but not like the ones I'd seen on Earth. These were enormous, like skyscrapers made of light. Some of these huge angels looked at me and smiled. "Come on, Lorna," they would say, "you're almost there." And although they were really huge, I could hear their voices crystal clear, as if they were speaking directly to my soul. Then something happened that left me completely stunned. I heard a voice, but it wasn't just any voice. It was the voice, if you know what I mean. Yes, indeed, it was God's voice. "Lorna," he said to me, and I felt as if the whole universe vibrated with his voice. "You have to go back. You still have a lot to do." All disappointed, I replied, "But dear God, can't I stay just a little longer? It's really nice here with no pain and everything." God, with patience that many parents would envy, said to me, "My child, I understand. But your mission on Earth isn't finished. Stop hiding from me." "What do you mean hiding?" I asked, all confused. "I'm right here, God, clear as day." And he, with a laugh that sounded like bells, answered me, "Lorna, Lorna, always trying to hide, even in heaven. But it's time for you to come out into the light and fulfill your purpose." Being stubborn, I said, "But God, can't I hide here? It's nicer than on Earth." God, with a voice that was pure love but also very firm, told me, "No, Lorna. Enough hiding. You have to go back and do what you need to do. Many people need you down there. And well, how do you say no to God?" Although part of me wanted to stay in that beautiful place, I knew I had to go back. Before leaving, I felt as if all the love in the universe embraced me. It was such a crazy sensation, as if suddenly I understood everything and nothing at the same time. I saw how everything was connected, how every little thing we do affects everything else. "Remember, Lorna," God told me before I left, "love is the only thing that matters. Everything else is nonsense." And with those words echoing in my soul, I felt myself being pulled back to my body. It was like falling in slow motion, but in reverse. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, everything looked different. Colors were brighter, sounds clearer. And although my body was in terrible pain, there was a peace in my heart that I had never felt before. The doctors and nurses looked at me as if they had seen a ghost. And well, almost, right? I had been dead for 10 minutes, but for me it had been like 10 years in heaven. "Mrs. Lorna," the doctor said to me, all pale, "I don't know how to tell you this, but you were dead. Your heart stopped beating for 10 minutes. It's a miracle that you're alive and conscious." I just laughed. If they knew what I had just seen, they wouldn't be so surprised. "Doctor," I said with a smile, "don't worry. I was just taking a trip to heaven. But I'm back now because I still have work to do here." The doctor looked at me as if I was crazy, but I didn't care. I knew the truth. I had been in heaven, had talked with God, and had come back with a mission. That experience changed everything. I wasn't afraid of death anymore, because I knew it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much more awesome. And although I missed that place of light and love, I knew I had to be here on Earth, fulfilling my mission. Because as God said, love is the only thing that matters. And I had a lot of love to share. Well, there you have it. That's how I was coming back from the dead. Not something one does every day, right? I woke up in the intensive care unit, all connected to a bunch of machines making weird noises. I felt like I had been run over by a truck, but I was alive. That was already a win. The doctor, an elderly gentleman with a frightened face he couldn't hide, approached me cautiously, as if afraid I might disappear at any moment. "Mrs. Lorna," he said with a trembling voice, "how do you feel?" I wanted to say like I died and came back to life, but all that came out was a grunt. My throat was drier than the Sonoran Desert. The doc explained everything slowly, as if talking to a child. "You were, well, technically dead for 10 minutes. Your heart stopped beating and wasn't responding to anything. We thought we had lost you." Well, "I was lost for a bit, Doc," I said when I could finally speak, "but now I'm found." The poor man didn't know whether to laugh or call the psychiatrist. I didn't blame him. If I hadn't lived it, I wouldn't believe it either. The days that followed were crazy. Doctors came in and out, doing all sorts of tests. Everyone wanted to know how it was possible that I was alive and sane after being dead for so long. But the craziest thing wasn't the doctors or the nurses. The craziest thing was what I saw. Since I came back, it was as if the veil between this world and the other had become gossamer thin. I saw angels everywhere, clearer than ever. And not just angels, but souls too. There was a constant procession of beings of light around my bed. Some were angels I had known all my life. Others were souls that had just departed. One night, while everyone was sleeping, I saw an old lady standing next to my bed. She had a beautiful light around her and smiled at me with affection. "Who are you, grandmother?" I asked in a soft voice so as not to wake anyone. "I'm Dona Concha," she said with a voice that sounded like little bells. "I just died in the room next door. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" I asked, all confused. "But I don't even know you, grandmother." "You don't know me, my child," she said with a smile, "but your prayers helped me pass. Thank you for praying for everyone in this hospital." And just like that, she vanished. I was left wide-eyed, but with my heart full of incredible peace. That wasn't the only visit I had. It seemed like the whole afterlife had decided to meet in my hospital room. It was like a party, but without the tequila and with more light. One day, while a nurse was changing my four, I saw a huge angel standing next to her. He was taller than the door and shone so bright he nearly blinded me. "Hey, nurse," I said, "doesn't that huge angel beside you bother you?" The poor woman nearly fainted from fright. She looked at me as if I had grown another head and ran out of the room. From that day on, nurses would come in pairs, as if they were afraid to be alone with me. But honestly, I was more peaceful than ever. I had seen the other side and knew there was nothing to fear. Death didn't scare me anymore, because I knew it was just another step on the path. What did worry me was how I was going to explain all this to my family. How do you tell your children that their mom died, went to heaven, talked with God, and then came back as if nothing happened? When they finally let me receive visitors, my oldest son, Pablito, came into the room looking like he had seen a ghost. Well, technically he had, right? "Mom," he said with a trembling voice, "we thought we had lost you." I hugged him with all the strength I had, which wasn't much after surgery. "My son," I said, "don't think you'll get rid of me that easily. I still have a lot to do here." Little by little, I told my children and my family what I had experienced. Some believed me right away. Others thought the anesthesia had affected my brain. But everyone was happy to have me back. The days in the hospital felt eternal. I wanted to leave. I wanted to tell what I had seen. I wanted to share the message I had been given. But first I had to recover. Meanwhile, I kept seeing things that others couldn't see. I saw angels watching over the sick. I saw souls departing and souls that stayed lingering. It was like living in two worlds at the same time. When they finally discharged me, I left the hospital like new. Not just physically, but spiritually. I knew I had a mission to fulfill, a message to share. The world looked different. Colors were brighter, sounds clearer. And in every person I saw, I could see a bit of that divine light that we all carry within. That experience changed me forever. I wasn't the same Lorna who had entered the hospital weeks before. I was a new Lorna, one who had seen the other side and had come back to tell the story. And although I knew many people wouldn't believe me, that they would think I was crazy, I didn't care. I had a truth to share, a message of love and hope to give to the world. Because in the end, that's the only thing that matters, love. And I had received so much love from the other side, that now it was my turn to give it back multiplied by 1,000. So there I was, fresh out of the hospital, with a scar on my stomach and a soul full of light, ready to start my new mission in life. And let me tell you, what an awesome adventure awaited me. Well, here comes the last stretch of this crazy story. Hold on tight, because this gets good. I left the hospital as a new Lorna. Not just on the outside, where they had sewn me up and fixed my guts, but on the inside. It was as if they had changed my chip, you know what I mean? But don't think everything was smooth sailing, no way. Returning to the normal world after being in heaven was like coming down from an amazing trip and face-planting into reality. The first days at home were chaos. My kids looked at me like I was an alien. My Tono, the youngest, even asked me if I could see through walls. No, my child, I told him. I can only see angels and ghosts, but walls are still walls. My old man, Chewy, didn't know what to do with me. One night I caught him staring at me while I slept, as if afraid I might vanish. "What's up, Chewy?" I asked. "Did you lose something on my face or what?" The poor man just lowered his head and said with a broken voice, "I still can't believe it, Lorna. I lost you for 10 minutes. 10 fucking minutes that felt like an eternity." I hugged him tight and said, "It's okay, my Chewy. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Well, at least not for now." But honestly, I knew things couldn't be like before. I had seen the other side. I had talked with God himself, damn it. I couldn't just go back to cooking beans and watching soap operas like nothing happened. So one day, I sat down with the whole family and spilled the beans. I told them everything. About the tunnel of light, about seeing my dad, about talking with God. I told them I had a mission to fulfill and things were going to change. My Chewy looked at me like I had grown another head. "Mission," he said. "What, do you think you're Wonder Woman or what?" "No, dummy," I answered lovingly. "I think I'm the Lorna who died and came back to tell the tale." My kids were between excited and scared. Lupita, my oldest, even asked me if I could talk to her grandmother who had died years ago. "It doesn't work like that, my daughter," I explained. "I don't control who comes or who doesn't. But if your grandmother wants to visit you, she will in her own time." Little by little, the news started to spread around the neighborhood. Lorna, the one who sold tamales on the corner, had died and come back. It was as if suddenly I was a local celebrity. People started coming to the house. Some out of gossip, others because they really wanted to know. Some brought me candles, others asked me to bless them. There was even a guy who wanted to pay me to tell him the lottery numbers. Hold on. I told them one day when there were too many people outside the house. "I'm not a saint or a fortune teller or anything like that. I'm just Lorna who took a little trip to heaven and came back to tell about it." But honestly, I knew I had to do something with all this. I couldn't just ignore what I had experienced. So I started talking. First at the neighborhood church, then at the market, later even on local radio. I told them about my experience, but not to show off or to scare them. I talked about the love I had felt, about how everything was connected, about how every little thing we do matters. Look, I would tell them, it's not about praying all day or acting like saints. It's about loving intensely, helping others, forgiving, being kind. That's what matters up there. And honestly, people responded. It was as if everyone had been waiting to hear something like this. I saw how their faces lit up when I talked about the other side, how their fear of death disappeared. Of course, there were those who called me crazy or a liar. A tabloid reporter even came trying to discredit me. But I didn't let it get me down. I knew what I had experienced, and no one could take that away from me. My Chewy, who was all skeptical at first, gradually became convinced. One night, after we returned from a talk I gave in a neighboring town, he hugged me and said, "You know what, old lady, I think this is your thing. I've never seen you so happy and so, I don't know, like you're glowing." And he was right. I felt like I was finally doing what I was supposed to do. It was as if my whole life had been preparation for this. But don't think everything was rosy. Sometimes I had moments of doubt. I wondered if I wasn't going crazy, if all this wasn't just a side effect of the anesthesia or something. In those moments, I would close my eyes and remember the light, the love, God's voice. And I knew it was real. More real than anything else I had ever experienced. With time, my mission became clearer. It wasn't just about telling my experience. It was about helping people live without fear, to love more, to be better people. I started visiting hospitals, not just to talk with the sick, but to comfort those who were about to pass. I told them not to be afraid, that what was coming was beautiful. I also began working with addicts and troubled youth. I told them my story and told them it was never too late to change, that God loved them no matter what they had done. And you know what? It worked. I saw how people changed, how their fear disappeared, how they started living differently. Of course, not everyone believed me, and that was okay. It wasn't about convincing anyone. It was about planting a little seed of hope, of love, of faith in something bigger than ourselves. So there you have it. That's the story of how Lorna, the tamale lady, died, went to heaven, came back, and became, well, whatever I am now. A messenger, I suppose. A messenger of love, hope, and life after life. And although sometimes I miss that place of light and peace that I saw, I know it's not my time to stay there yet. I still have a lot to do here, a lot of love to give, many lives to touch. Because in the end, that's what matters. Not money or fame or any of that nonsense. What matters is the love we give, the lives we touch, the good we do. So now you know. If one day you're walking down the street and you see a somewhat crazy lady talking about angels and love, it might be me. And if you feel like it, stop for a while and listen. Who knows, you might take a little taste of heaven home with you.